WeAfric is on a mission to make real change by facilitating solutions for our everyday lives. We'll be joined by professionals and influential individuals to share with you their journey and recipe for success. We ask about their methods and experience. Is it their career, their education, or is it their background? This is our secret sauce to enlighten, uplift, and empower the community where we are all special. Welcome to WeAfric Talk, where our support is our actions. If they don't believe you, tell them to subscribe to this channel.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in to WeAfric Talk. You know, we've got the one and only Paul Samuels with us, aka Jay, producer, founder, director, a man of all trades here, who's taking his time out from his busy schedule to join us on this talk to discuss film, life in the diaspora, anything else that we can probably fit into this small segment of our show. Is it okay to call you Jay?
Yeah, man. As long as you end whatever you call me with nice.
Okay.
Jay,
So
Jay's nice.
It's going to be nice.
Yeah, exactly.
For all the viewers out there who don't know who Paul Samuels, aka Jay, the one and only, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Paul Samuels, the founder, creative director of Sonjo Media. Fundamentally, Sonjo Media is a production company, dabbles in a bit of digital marketing, but we're a media production company. We create campaigns for companies wanting to move into that space. We were founded over 7 years ago, and basically the way that the whole concept came about for the agency, I had worked in M&C Saatchi as a digital producer. I learned a lot in that environment. I moved from that space. I worked for a few corporates such as Shell. And actually, while I was at M&C Saatchi, I was one of the producers for the digital campaign around the 2020 Olympic Games.
Oh, wow.
In London. So I kind of saw how M&C Saatchi used creative concepts. And fundamentally, I'm a creative at heart. I saw how all of that worked. And I felt like there wasn't the same type of thinking being used to articulate my story. And when I say my story, I mean people from my ethnicity. And this was really proven to me a few years later when the Ebola campaign came out. When the Ebola hit West Africa and Sierra Leone. At the time, like, there was a lot of hysteria about what was going on. I think maybe 30% of the stories that were being pushed out were true and were gospel, but there was a huge majority of the stories that over glamorized. And I saw firsthand like what had happened in Ethiopia with the famine back in the day, where the campaign to kind of showcase the Ethiopian government as being a government that didn't really care for its citizens during that famine, and it needed help from the West to rescue it from the situation it was. And that was something that was really pushed by the media, the Western media. But I think, not to say the help wasn't needed and the help wasn't impactful, but the long-term effects were that there was a stigma around Ethiopia for many years post the famine, which actually, you know, they got over after a few years. Industry in Ethiopia went down, like in particular the tourist industry. The GDP of that great nation was suffered from that campaign, that smear campaign. Even though it had a positive spin to it, it was fundamentally a smear campaign. And I saw the same kind of thinking and rhetoric happening with regards to Sierra Leone, which is a country where my parents live in. And at the time of Ebola, they were over there, and they were giving me stories that were contrary to what I was hearing post when everything was kind of starting to settle down. They were still spinning this narrative of the Ebola campaign killing people in Sierra Leone. And I knew that wasn't the case. So I actually got on a plane, went out there, and did a short documentary called The Ebola Stigma Vaccine. Yeah, that's what I called it, The Ebola Stigma Vaccine.
Yeah, I remember. I saw this on your website, and so this is probably the thing that got you into film, or because you already
that was my first production. Like, that's when I took a camera and just did my own solo production, and Sonjo Media kind of came from that rose like a phoenix from the dust of the Ebola stigma vaccine. And we've just been pushing an alternative narrative for people of my ethnicity fundamentally, but we work with loads of different industries. But my core is to push an alternative narrative for people of my ethnicity, my demographic. That's pretty much it. Give a louder voice to the otherwise unheard.
Wow, fantastic. Honestly, that's an amazing achievement considering, you took it upon yourself to go out there, see on the ground for yourself exactly what is happening, understand that the media is never really pushing anything positive. For example, for me, I've stopped watching TV and listening to the news for years. I'll skip lines here and there, but generally I just don't watch the news because it's always just negative. It's never really anything positive as such. But in your case, it's more hands-on. I mean, you just went there. Was it just one-man crew, just you by yourself? And
when I got out there, I hired a few people on the ground as well. I was actually investing in the locals as well, using the talent that was available to help pull it together. All it takes is one ripple to create a wave, and hopefully I donated to that ripple that is now, I think, you're seeing more positive stories, and fundamentally it's being broadcasted via social media as opposed to conventional media, but you are definitely seeing more positive stories around the continent, fundamentally created by people like us, people from there who are taking more control over that narrative. And I'd like to think that, Sonjo Media is helping to create that wave that is ultimately going to create that change that we definitely need.
You've done an amazing job. And as you said, social media now has given us the platform for our community and our people, African people, descendants of Africans, to get out there, push the right narrative, make sure people understand that there is another story to this original story. Very good thing that we're all kind of trying to strive towards. I was going to say, how long have you lived in the UK and how would you describe your life here?
Ooh. I don't know if you've got enough time for this interview, but I can give you the executive summary. So I was born and raised in South London.
Okay.
Still based in South London. So I'm very much a London baby. Growing up in London, it's an interesting one. So I grew up in the late 80s, and so back in that era of time, being of African descent wasn't necessarily the coolest thing. The part of London where I grew up in, which is southeast, in areas like lived in Lewisham, then we moved to Kidbrooke, and then we moved to like Woolwich and even Thamesmead, and then I moved back to like Brixton and Boleshill. But the point I'm making is those parts of London, they weren't particularly welcoming to people of my skin tone.
Okay.
To say the least, the racial tension was very high in those areas, to the point where people like, I don't know if you know the story of Roland Adams. He was a brother that I actually grew up with. One of my friends, he inspired me to want to do music back in the day. He was like one of the best rappers in the area that I grew up in. And I used to just go to his house. His dad used to basically encourage him to push in his creative arts. And I just used to go to his house. He had this great studio set up, and we just used to kick it in his house, and we used to kick raps and produce beats all day. At a young age, around 14, 15, he got murdered, man.
Wow.
And it was race related, and that kind of brought the tension of the races in my community up for a high. And then it simmered down for a while. And then 4 years after that, there was another murder which just made the headlines, and that was Stephen Lawrence. And he was another one of our friends. He was another one of the people that I grew up with. He was my boy. He was very loved in our community. I guess my thinking then really changed at that age, and I started to realize, you know what, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much, and I think things might have changed now, but maybe I'm coming from a tarnished place, but I felt like it doesn't matter how much you try and put into this society, they're never really going to embrace you as one of them. Arguably, a lot of the things that are happening now around the whole Black Lives Matter and things of that nature, arguably that is evidence of some of the notions and the thoughts that, or the full sense of security that some of us might have had about living in these environments or in the Western hemisphere of being accepted into a society that arguably isn't really ours. And every now and again, you don't need to watch what people tell you. You just need to watch their actions.
Okay.
And if their actions don't reflect what they're saying, there's not really much need to have dialogue in that area. You just need to move accordingly. And I've been noticing things, and my belief is that as a people, yeah, we've got a place in this society, but it's only a place that is as comfortable as we're allowed the powers that be to let us feel, as opposed to us allowing ourselves to feel comfortable. So I'd very much like to be in a space where we had more control over that, as opposed to feeling like we were being controlled. That makes sense.
Okay. I totally understand. How do you think we can go about getting to that process of in control of our own narrative? And
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need to work. We need work, man. We need to work on ourselves as a people, fundamentally.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I'm not just talking about as a community. I think the work starts with yourself first. So I just gave you an example of what I've seen growing up as a young man in South London, the racial divide. I'm now a father and a husband, and I have a son, and I haven't never seek counseling for those things that I saw, like having close friends die growing up. Like I've never ever sat down and sought counseling for that. Any other person that experienced that type of, loss in their lives, arguably see that as a major trauma that could impact, the future generations. So the point I'm making is it's important to first look at yourself and acknowledge that you might have things within yourself that need fixing. If you can acknowledge those imperfections, then it's inevitable that as a community, if there's loads of mini yous or potential people like you, then they might have issues as well that need fixing. So if we can acknowledge that, first of all, we're not really perfect as a people, so let's not go in with these unrealistic ideals. Let's accept each other for what our weaknesses are, which for someone else might be a strength. Lean on each other, but fundamentally, I think the base that we need to be is in a place where we are ready to organize as a people. I think that's the first step to getting to where we need to be, being able to organize. I'm all for that.
Yeah. Wow, fantastic. I think that's exactly the same thing that we're trying to do at WeAfric. Organize and mobilize the community to have frank, open discussions, as, for example, me and you are doing right now. But obviously, during the times and further on would probably be a case of having more kind of face-to-face, community-based led discussions and just talking frankly about what we're going through. Seeing how we can find some solutions and workable actions that can take place.
And I think that's the thing that really attracted me to the whole WeAfric proposition. Just like the way it's structured, the ideology and the ethos of us as a people coming to a space where, one, we're not being judged fundamentally. Two, it's a place where it's got structure, it's got direction. From a digital perspective, we need to have more real estate like that for us as a community to congregate and be more structured. And ultimately, it's a matter of time, or it's inevitable that in those types of environments, you can pollinate conversations around progression easier, and you can see those things manifest quicker because you're talking to people of a like-minded mentality. It makes sense that there's less effort to now push that energy in a positive direction.
I definitely agree with you there. So as you're growing up, obviously, you had all these challenges that you went through that you've briefly explained to us. What kind of support do you think you would have liked growing up, or even maybe now?
It's interesting. I think, believe it or not, from my recollection of growing up in these environments or growing up in this part of South London, I actually felt more like I was part of a community back then than I do now, even though arguably I do have my own little village that I'm a part of in London as a whole. But as a community back then, I felt like I was part of a community, and we definitely had each other's backs. So there were, even though I said being African, it wasn't necessarily the coolest thing. It wasn't as cool as it is now. Regardless of that, it wasn't about being African when I was growing up. It was just about being black. As long as you were black, you were definitely part of the same struggle. So we all kind of looked out for each other, and it didn't matter what part of, but the part of South London I grew up in, which is Lewisham, Greenwich, Thamesmead, Dartford, all of those places, New Cross, Stepford. It didn't really matter where you were from. We all kind of rallied together because of that one common cause, especially on this side of the river, which is South East near Charlton and what have you. So we had the support of the community, and we were all very proactive in that. Now I think things have got a bit more fragmented, and arguably that might be because maybe our generation, we let down young people under us because we didn't give them that steer or that guidance that the elders gave us when we were growing up. So we had that respect, our elders, that I don't necessarily see now. So I think that's what's lacking now. But when I was growing up as a community, I definitely felt like I was part of one.
Okay, excellent. That's definitely a community ethos is still within our communities. It's just a case of maybe we just need to make a resurgence of it to kind of bring it back and make it even more powerful than it once was. I think you're hitting the nail on the head right there. So what kept you motivated in terms of going through and continuing to make films, and what kind of mindset did you have during these times?
I've always been a creative guy or creative brother.
Yeah.
So like I said, Roland Adams at the time, RMA as he was known in our community, he was a very talented producer, stroke rapper, and he inspired me. And then I was just fortunate enough to be around a lot of creative individuals. I went to performing arts school as well, studied media for my first degree. So I kind of, as I was growing up, I just surrounded myself with a lot of creative people, and that helped drive me to want to achieve. And then it always helps when every now and again someone in your creative circle might break a boundary or become successful in their chosen field.
Yeah.
And that helped kind of spur me as well. Yeah, I can do this, I can do this. I leaned on those individuals, and I watched what they were doing, and I studied what they were doing, and where I saw success, I replicated it, and where it didn't work, I didn't go down that route. But yeah, fundamentally, man, I kind of just kept it moving, kept focused, kept my hands on the creative cycle or circle around me, and eventually, I landed my hand into media and production. I've always had a fascination for moving image and the way it represents storytelling. Spike Lee is one of my favorite directors. I actually came to my uni once and did a talk.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and when I met him, I told him, one day I'm going to be in one of your films. And he looked at me like, yeah, right. Anyway, thanks for coming. But yeah, so yeah, the point I'm making is I've always had a lot of positive, creative people around me. I've never had a mentor until like the latter stages of my career, but having those people around me kept me on track, even when I was going through hardship.
When you say mentors, I think we generally have mentors around us. For example, our friends who we can actually speak to about the things we are doing. They are actually mentors, but they're not called mentors because you don't say, okay, let's meet here to discuss this. Might meet up and say, okay, let's just discuss this kind of idea that I have. And then they'll give you, I don't think you should go down this route. I think this would work. So in a way, if you have the positive friends around you, they are your mentors. For example, I've got a nucleus of friends speak to you about literally anything and everything. They're all kind of mentors to me in not so much of being a mentor in the sense of the word, but just you can speak to and say, look, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? Oh, I'm doing this and I want you to get involved in this way. What do you think? So I think it's having those kind of people around, which really generally helps.
Definitely. And it's true. We do have mentors around us, but we don't necessarily call them mentors. Yeah. We don't see them as doing that mentor role. But yeah, you're right. I had a lot of understudy mentors.
Okay. Excellent. But it's even better that you can tap into them and kind of push out some creative ideas, and then they'll be like, oh, okay. Yeah, I really like this idea, Because I saw you working with us in terms of like the promotional video that we are going to be due to release. Just kind of seeing the way you're working, I was fascinated to just understand. If you could explain a little bit to our viewers.
Yeah, I mean, the WeAfric promo piece, that's something that it was very much, I'd met up with Danny. I did a piece for their promo for their restaurant also a while back, and he actually planted the seed for the WeAfric concept back then. But he didn't expand on it.
Okay.
It just gave me a little glimpse in the
Okay.
conversation about something that he was thinking about doing. I remember hearing it and I kind of logged it in the back of my head, but I didn't act on it because people say a lot of things to me. Some things people say go literally going one ear and out the other. I gotta be real with you. But every now and again, something will be spoken about that logs in the database. And usually those things are what I call my little nugget moments or eureka moments. So he said something and it logged in my database, but I didn't really play on it any further than that. And then a few years later, he came back to me and expanded on the vision that he wanted to build for WeAfric and what you guys were trying to do. And it resonated with me because it was something that in my head I felt was so necessary, wanted to see happen within I always wanted to see our community organize itself in the space of digital. I wanted us to have more ownership because it's almost like we license our rights away to a lot of more popular platforms. And those more popular platforms, like I said before, with regards to understanding your role in the Western society, people can tell you, feel at home, you're welcome. If someone invites you to their house and tells you you're welcome and you can stay the night, I'm just throwing this mad random scenario, it just came into my head. If I invited you to my house for the weekend and said, you know what, come, you're welcome. Yeah. You came because obviously you accepted my invitation, right?
Yeah.
So you're taking it as word is bond. I'm inviting you, so clearly he wants me to come and spend the weekend. He told me that I'm welcome. You're expecting as a basic, a certain degree of hospitality.
Yes.
Correct? Just a certain degree. You're not asking for 5-star treatment, but you would expect basic level of hospitality. When you came, like, I didn't have a bed for you. When you wanted to eat, there was no food. I told you, mate, you have to go to the shop and buy your own food. When you wanted to drink, there wasn't even any running water. I said, mate, you have to go to the shop and buy your own water. Regardless of how much I told you you were welcome, my actions would tell you, and you yourself would diagnose from my actions that, this dude, he ain't actually about what he say. He doesn't, he's not welcoming me. There's no way this dude wants me to stay here. If you then chose to persevere and stay regardless of that behavior pattern, whose bad is that? Is that mine or is that yours?
Yeah, 100% is mine.
Exactly. So my thing is, I always feel like, don't watch what people tell you, man. Let their actions speak. If their actions reflect what they say, by all means, run with it. But if their actions show you something different, there's no need to have a conversation about it because clearly they're not having a conversation about how they feel with you. So why should you entertain a conversation? Just let your actions speak also. Move from that situation. In the digital space, a lot of things were happening with regards to the digital space that had me questioning just how welcome certain spaces were for people of our ethnicity. Okay. So I wanted to see more ownership of those spaces from people of our ethnicity because ultimately I felt like that would be a true place of welcoming for us. Yeah. And WeAfric for me represented that. It made sense to then articulate a story that would resonate with our community and galvanize them to want to be a part of it because ultimately I felt like that's what the platform and what the messaging needed to do. It needed to galvanize the audience to want to be a part of it, so evoke an emotion. And if we could somehow evoke an emotion in the viewer or the consumer, then hopefully they would action something based on that emotion. And that's all I wanted to achieve, just evoke an emotion. And I'm hoping that when people watch this video, that emotion will be evoked, that they feel like empowered to want to do something.
Yeah.
And the timing is everything. Timing is everything when it comes to media. I feel you could not orchestrate this time that we're currently in any better than literally painting certain events, global events, literally paying people to orchestrate it yourself. And I know you guys didn't do that. So the timing as well has definitely married up perfectly with the messaging. The two working hand in hand, I feel will do more than is what is necessary to evoke that emotion that makes people just look at their surroundings in whatever digital space they're in and ask just that one question: are you really welcome there? And if the answer is no, then hey, maybe you need to start thinking of alternatives.
Yeah, no, I think you highlight very important points that action speaks louder than anything. And obviously we're trying to galvanize the community and see if people are going to support us and see how they kind of see their vision, and also our vision will be aligned with theirs. And then we just move forward and just try to find the solutions to the actions that we plan on implementing. What else do you do when you're not filming, working on any particular projects? What's your downtime like?
I do a lot of things, to be fair, but I got a few major projects that I'm working on at the moment called Living the Dream Africa, which is actually a TV show.
Okay.
Which is currently it's on a lot of airlines that fly across the continent, and it's basically about people from the diaspora wanting to move back to the continent, and it just documents their journey and what you have to go through to buy land and the struggles that people face when they want to buy a property. And I think a lot right now, once again, I said timing is everything. I feel like right now there's a huge pull for people from the diaspora that want to move back to the continent.
Yeah.
But trust is the biggest issue I've identified amongst my circles and external networks. And that's the main reason, because they always hear these nightmare stories about bad acquisitions or buying a house and then living there. And then 3 years later, someone telling them, actually, I own this land and I own this house. I don't know who sold this to you. Like those types of things constantly happening. I'm working with a team of very gifted individuals to pull together a space that people can see that transparency and just be with more credible individuals, and basically to remote manage within theory that whole move back home. I think important at this time. I'm doing my little bit there.
Is that a global? You're working with people here. You're working with people in Africa. You're working with people in the States. How's it?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a team from here, team from Africa, and a team in America.
Okay.
I'm working with a few African Americans as well to make that happen.
Okay.
And watch this space. I think I've even given out more than I'm allowed to. But the show is out. You can catch it on KLM, Ethiopian Airlines.
Okay.
What other airlines? South African Airways. It's on a few airlines, in-flight entertainment. We're going to bring it to some TV networks soon. Soon is a big variable, but it is going to happen.
No, it sounds an amazing side project from your daily routine.
It's not even a side project. It's my main focus right now.
Okay.
To get the show popping. Outside of that, just being a father, a good husband, and paying my taxes. And that's pretty much my life, you know.
This is amazing. Paying my taxes, love it. Yeah, that's one thing that stays constant.
Exactly, you know.
Yes, I was going to ask you, how much does your culture have to do with what type of person you are?
Oh, a lot. Now that I'm getting dramatically but gracefully older, I'm deeply rooted in my culture. But I do have some 21st century upgrades to certain aspects of my culture, but the fundamental roots are there at the core of me. They make up who I am. So I'm very much a solid West African, as we say in my country, Salon Bobo. But I don't necessarily feel the need to scream about it or shout about it, because I'm a person that, contrary to this interview, I don't really talk much.
Okay.
I'm someone who I just let my actions speak. I remember when Danny was briefing me on the video concept, the storyline for WeAfric. I looked at it, went away, I thought about it, and then I came about in my research. I found this gentleman, FRANKLYN Rogers' piece, Underexposed. And wow, that's such a powerful piece, and the concept and the notion behind it was so deep. It was about just looking at the jewels that exist within our community that are not given the recognition that they're given or that they deserve. And he did a whole exhibition showcasing the simple portraits of people like Idris Elba, Ashley Waters, other really, really gifted, talented people from our community. And all of them are from African descent. Like I said, they're not given that platform. So I looked at the research on that. I thought, yeah, this is perfect. And then it was in Peckham. So that then linked into a story or the concept around, I remember growing up, Desmond was such a big show for me. And there was this character, Matthew, who was basically an African immigrant that, moved to this country for a better life. And he represented, for me, a migrant or immigrant of a high skill set coming to London, seeing it as a place of milk and honey, bringing the Africanism of his culture into South London, in particular Peckham, marrying the whole immigrant story. And I think Desmond's as a whole, it just showed the positive impact that immigrants have had from the Caribbean, from Africa, in our communities, and how people have come here and made a life for themselves, but still not forgotten their roots. And I really felt like Peckham, Desmond, and then Franklyn Rogers' piece, everything being in Peckham, it just made sense to do a story around the migrant evolution or immigrant revolution to the modern day, which ultimately was going to be the digital world. That was the reason why I chose that location. I tell you all of this for the WeAfric video, but I say all of this to end with this, which is that I remember when all this thinking was going on in my head, right? And that's how I came up with the concept. When Danny said to me, gave me the video, right, gave me the brief, and I came back, told him the story and the concept, he was like, oh my God, it's amazing. Let's do this. I was like, oh, great. And I gave him the budget, and he went away, frowned, and then came back. Anyway, the long and short of it is he accepted the creative direction and the concept, and I showed him a few kind of screen grabs where I wanted to take it. And he was like, okay, this is good. But don't you have the storyboard? And I was like, no. And he was like, but I said, what I gave you, like screenshots with the headers and stuff like that, that pretty much is as much as I feel is necessary. And he was like, but so how do you articulate your vision to the people that you work with, like without a storyboard? How do you do that? Like I said, I'm a man of, I don't really talk much, but the people that I work with, I've been working with them for years.
Okay.
And we've got to a place where our understanding of each other is so streamlined that it takes minimum effort to get maximum results from them, if that makes sense. So I don't need to, I give creative direction, but I allow for creative interpretation as well, if that makes sense. I don't micromanage the teams that I work with, because then you can't pollinate eureka moments or magic from the person's interpretation of your vision. You just need to trust and lean into their creativity as well to build on what it is that you're presenting. But you don't need to weigh in on their creative interpretation and their creative, like you have to trust that they're capable of doing what it is you've kind of hired them or you're working with them to do. And I'm very much someone that encourages that with my teams, and that's how I think I get the best out of the people that I work with.
I think it's an excellent approach, because sometimes when you micromanage, it limits their ability to express themselves as well. So, and I think I've been working for so long together, it's just a natural progression that they feel as if they have also creative control within their own boundaries.
Yeah, exactly.
What advice would you give to anyone thinking of migrating from, let's say, country of origin or Africa into the diaspora?
I think this rule of thumb reigns true regardless of wherever it is. If you're moving from the diaspora to here, or if you're moving from here back to Africa, if you're moving from Africa here, or if you're moving from the diaspora back to Africa, have a focus and work hard. And I think if those are your baseline, regardless of where you go, you're willing to have a clear focus of what you want to achieve and work hard to achieving it.
Yeah.
Then it really doesn't matter where you are in the world. You can actually make things happen. Understand you're going to face challenges no matter where you are. Those challenges will come in different shapes and forms, but they're challenges regardless of what shape or form it is.
Yeah.
You just need to accept that. Face those challenges head on and have that staying power and grit. By all means, you will definitely meet your goal. No dream location on the planet, no long haul flight that leads to a dream location happens without turbulence in that flight.
Okay.
So I think as long as you understand that those are just the laws of getting to paradise or wherever it is your dream location is, you're always going to meet turbulence. You still have to steer the course or stay on the course regardless of what is how are you going to meet your destination? So as long as you understand that those things are unavoidable, there's no reason why you should feel limitations.
Excellent. Great advice. Where can people find you?
So that's an interesting one. You can find you can find Sonjo Media via Instagram. That's Sonjo Media, and you can also find us on the web, sonjomedia.com. That's my little man in the back.
I was going to say, we generally end the show giving our guests 2-minute window, or you can take slightly longer. Tell our audience anything else they would like to say, anything they would like to plug. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the one and only Jay, aka Paul Samuels, from the one and only Sonjo Media.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for the time and the opportunity to speak on your platform. Understand that I don't do interviews, so this is an exclusive. You probably won't see me do this for any other platform or anyone for a while, unless it's my own show. But yeah, Sonjo Media, look out for all the creative, amazing things that we're looking to push out in a TV, on an aeroplane screen, on your mobile device near you soon, or your digital out-of-home product. Also, be sure to see more amazing creative collaborations with myself and the WeAfric team. Paul Samuels, Sonjo Media.
Yeah, thanks for that. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Also, with regards to the making of the WeAfric video, I definitely blessed with the creative vision and having a team to help pull that together, but I had to call on some creative friends of mine for the soundtrack. Troy from the BROADCITE set provided an amazing track that we were able to use. And if you listen to that, the undertone and for the main hook of the song, the vocals are saying, we couldn't do this without you. That, I think, rings true to any crowdfunding video, ultimately. Whatever it is we're aiming to achieve, it can't be done without the support of the audience, the community. So that just married up perfectly. Subsequently, they have a song coming out soon, which is doing amazing things as well, called Abasan. The fact that they were able to collaboratively work with us for that, I'm very grateful for. Likewise, clothing brand MELANINAIRE. So if you look at the video, Lula, who's the main character, he's wearing a MELANINAIRE top. They're doing great things right now. Shout out to Simone and Jamal, MELANINAIRE, for getting that feature in Vogue, the British Vogue magazine last month. Shout out to them as well. So if it wasn't for people like that supporting the vision and seeing the importance of this particular moment in time that we're in and helping to magnify that through their platform, working with me to help magnify the vision with their creative energy, it's just an example of how working collaboratively we can create something amazing that is impactful, works towards one common goal, which ultimately means we get to where we want to be as a people in a bigger vision. So yeah, bigger than just one person.
I think it's great. What we'll do is we'll put all the links, Sonjo Media down there, put the record label down there, MELANINAIRE down there. So it's all, we'll put it all down in the links below, guys, so you can check it out. And yeah, let us know your feedback. Great music, great clothing, great soundtrack, great direction. So thank you so much for taking time out to.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
And it's greatly appreciated.
Stay walking in vision. I am because we are.
Thank you for watching the latest episode of WeAfric Talk. We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did. Be part of the WeAfric family, subscribe and share. And remember, we're here to shake things up, reverse the flow, and be great. I am because we are.